Boys and girls, this is Mrs. Zimmerman, and I'm going to be teaching a lesson today on the water cycle. This can be found in Packet 2 in the Reading Enrichment section. I'm going to be starting the lesson by watching a video done by Dr. Binox, and he's going to talk to us about the water cycle. Enjoy.
It's raining. Hey, have you ever wondered where the rain comes from? Or how the clouds are formed? Well, this is what the water cycle is all about. Come, let's explore. Zoom in. When the sun heats up the rivers and oceans, water becomes water vapor and it rises up in the air. This process is called evaporation. It is the first step of the water cycle. You too can see water vapor at home. Just tell your mommy to heat some water. And as the water gets heated, you'll be able to see the water vapor rising up in the air. When the water vapor reaches up in the sky, it turns into tiny droplets of water. These water droplets, along with the various gases and dust particles, come together to form clouds. This is known as condensation. Now, hold a cold lid over the vessel in which you heated water. When you open the lid after some time, you'll be able to see water droplets on the lid. That's exactly what condensation is. When the cloud becomes too heavy and it cannot hold any more water inside, it bursts open to give out rain, hail, or snow. This is known as precipitation. As it rains, water gets collected in oceans, lakes, and rivers. It even seeps through the soil and becomes groundwater. Thus, water cycle is a continuous process of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Trivia time! Did you know that even plants sweat? That's called transpiration. That's why it rains more in places with more trees, like hill stations and forests. Sometimes snow directly turns into water vapor without melting into water. That's called sublimation. This happens a lot in cold countries. Oh, I need to run now. It's raining again. So this is me zooming out. Tune in next time for some more fun facts.
Okay, boys and girls, we're ready to begin our lesson. We'll be reading this together, and remember, when we read, we want to pause at the punctuation marks, and as we read for meaning. So let's begin. Start at the top and we'll read this together. The water cycle. Do you know where rain comes from? It is water from the sky. How does the water get there? The answer is the sun. The sun heats up the ocean and rivers and lakes. Then the water on top turns into vapor. Vapor is many drops of water that can float in the air. The vapor then rises up into the sky. When the water vapor gets cold, it turns into clouds. The wind blows the clouds in the sky. When the clouds get too full, the water falls back to earth. This is rain. Rain mostly goes into the ground, but the ground can only hold a little water at a time. When there is too much rain for the ground, the water goes back to the ocean. This makes streams and rivers. This water goes back to the ocean. Then the water cycle starts again. And now, boys and girls, let's look at the diagram at the bottom of our page. The water cycle. Step number 1, the sun heats up the ocean. Step number 2, ocean water evaporates and rises into the air. Step number 3, the water vapor cools and condenses to become droplets, which form clouds. Step number 4, if enough water condenses, the drops become heavy enough to fall to the ground as rain and snow. Step number 5, some water collects in the ground. The rest flows through the rivers back into the ocean. All right, now, boys and girls, let's turn to the back and let's look at step number 1 and read it together. We take our yellow crayon and it says, color a sentence in the text that tells about how water vapor rises into the air to make clouds. Also, we'll take our yellow crayon or marker and now color a part of the diagram that tells or shows water vapor rising into the air to make clouds. So let's turn back to our text. And I have already highlighted it for you, but you will want to get your crayon and highlight it as well. And the sentence that answers that question is, when the water vapor gets cold, it turns into clouds. All right, and if we look below at our diagram, we'll be able to see that that happens here in step number 1. So I colored step number 1 yellow. All right, let's turn to the back again and look at question number 2. And the directions there say, color a sentence in the text that tells about how clouds get full of water and it starts to rain. And then color a part of the diagram that tells or shows how clouds get full of water and it starts to rain. And that's with our blue crayon or marker. So we turn back over, and the sentence that answers that best is down here. And it says, when the clouds get too full, the water falls back to earth. This is rain. And that is in our diagram right here where the precipitation is beginning. So we color that blue. Then we turn back to the last step, step number 3. And it says, color a sentence in the text that tells about how the water collects in the ground or flows through the rivers to the ocean. And then color a part of the diagram that tells or shows how the water collects in the ground or flows through the rivers to the ocean. We turn over, and this is with our orange crayon or marker, and the sentence that answers that best starts here with the word when. When there is too much rain for the ground, the water goes back to the ocean. This makes streams and rivers. And down in our diagram, it's right here where this water is flowing into a stream. All right, thank you. That's it for this lesson. That brings us to the end of this lesson. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.